15 of the world's most expensive tech experts had spent 3 agonizing days trying to patch the catastrophic security breach that was about to bring down Aaron's entire digital empire. 15 brilliant minds with PhDs in cybersecurity, armed with cutting-edge encryption tools and million-dollar software, and not a single one could find the flaw that was bleeding his operation dry. The war room on the fortified level of Aaron's headquarters had become a battlefield of frayed nerves, scattered energy drinks, and humiliated genius. Then a 24-year-old maid walked in with a mop and bucket. Tracy Bennett was nobody. A college dropout drowning in bills, working cleaning jobs just to keep her younger brother in school, living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment where the heat barely worked. She had been forced to abandon her cybersecurity degree when life shattered her future in a single night. She was invisible. The kind of person powerful men never bothered to acknowledge. But when her eyes caught the lines of code still flickering on that massive monitor, something sparked. In exactly 60 seconds, while wiping down a keyboard with one hand, she typed 3 commands that fixed what 15 experts couldn't solve in 72 hours. The systems rebooted. Green lights flooded the screens. She had no idea that standing in the darkness behind her, watching her every keystroke with eyes like a frozen flint, was Aaron himself, the most dangerous and calculating Mafia boss in the city, a man whose word could end careers or lives with equal ease. A man whose presence could silence an entire room with nothing but a look. Before we dive deeper into this story of brilliance hidden in plain sight, I want to wish you all a prosperous new year. May this new year be filled with success, growth, and meaningful connections with those who matter most. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our new stories. Now, let us find out what happens when the most powerful man in the underworld becomes obsessed with the woman everyone else ignored. Aaron stepped out of the shadows, his custom Italian shoes barely making a sound against the polished floor. "Who gave you permission to touch my system?" His voice was sharp as a blade with no inflection, because it wasn't a question. It was a demand. Tracy jolted and spun around, the cleaning rag slipping from her hands and hitting the floor with a wet slap. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she looked into the coldest gray eyes she had ever encountered. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I was just cleaning. I didn't mean to," Tracy stammered, instinctively stepping back and nearly tripping over her bucket. But Aaron didn't move. His gaze shifted to the monitor where her commands were still visible, then back to her face. "What did you just do to my server?" he asked, his tone still devoid of warmth. Tracy swallowed hard, realizing she had crossed a line by touching something far beyond her pay grade in the territory of a man who didn't tolerate mistakes. She forced herself to meet his eyes, her voice steadier than she felt. "I just noticed the code had a syntax error in the encryption string, so I fixed it. Occupational hazard of someone who used to study this stuff. When I see something broken, I want to fix it. Even broken code." Aaron's expression didn't change. This was the first time anyone had dared to speak to him with anything other than fear when he was radiating danger. "You think you're clever?" He stepped closer, his imposing frame casting a shadow over Tracy's smaller form. "No." She took a breath, her hands trembling slightly. "But if you really want to know, I think someone deliberately sabotaged your security. And I think I know how they did it." The silence that followed was suffocating. Aaron didn't blink, didn't move, and Tracy wondered if she had just signed her own death warrant. The 15 experts who had been working around the clock were nowhere to be seen now, probably dismissed after their spectacular failure. It was just her, a man who could make people disappear, and the truth hanging between them like a loaded gun. Explain. One word. Flat. Final. Tracy's mind raced. She could lie, apologize, and run. But something in those gray eyes told her that Aaron already knew she was telling the truth. He was testing her now, measuring whether she had the spine to back up her words. "The error wasn't random," she said, her voice gaining strength. "It was placed there. See this." She pointed at the screen, careful not to touch anything this time. "The syntax breaks the encryption handshake, but only after the system authenticates. That means whoever did this had administrative access. They wanted your data exposed just long enough to copy it before anyone noticed." Aaron moved to the monitor, his eyes scanning the code with an intensity that surprised her. He understood what he was looking at least enough to know she wasn't making this up. "You studied cybersecurity," he said. "Not a question. 2 years at State. Top of my class." The words tasted bitter. "Until my parents died in a car accident and I had to drop out to take care of my brother. And now you clean the floors." "Now I clean the floors?" she echoed, hating how small it sounded. Aaron was quiet for a long moment, and Tracy could practically hear the calculations running behind those cold eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed just slightly. Less knife, more scalpel. These 15 experts cost me $500,000. They accomplished nothing. You fixed it in 60 seconds with a mop in your hand. He turned to face her fully. Tell me, Tracy Bennett, what else can you see that they couldn't? Her breath caught. He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. Men like Aaron knew everything about everyone in their orbit. I'd need access to your full network architecture, she said carefully. And about an hour. You'll have it. Aaron pulled out his phone, typed something, then slipped it back into his pocket. Marcus will set you up in the secure lab. You find the traitor, and I'll make sure you never have to touch another mop again. Tracy's pulse was racing now, but not from fear. From possibility. From the sudden, dizzying realization that her life had just pivoted on a single moment of courage. And if I can't find them? Aaron's smile was thin and dangerous. Then I'll know you were the one who planted the error in the first place, and we'll have a very different conversation. He walked past her toward the door, then paused. One more thing. You work for me now. That means you don't speak to anyone about what you see, what you find, or what you know. Break that rule and your brother's scholarship disappears. Am I clear? The threat was delivered so casually it took a moment to land. But when it did, Tracy understood exactly what kind of man she was dealing with. Aaron didn't just play chess with people's lives. He owned the board. Crystal clear, she whispered. Good. Marcus is waiting outside. And just like that, the predator walked away, leaving Tracy standing in the war room with her bucket and mop, wondering if she had just been saved or captured. The apartment was dark when Tracy finally stumbled through the door at 3 a.m. Her fingers were cramped from 8 hours of coding, her eyes burned from staring at screens, and her mind was still spinning with encryption algorithms and digital footprints. But she'd found something. 3 anomalies in Aaron's system logs that pointed to an inside job, just like she'd suspected. Tracy? A groggy voice came from the small bedroom they shared. That you? Yeah, Danny. Go back to sleep. Her 16-year-old brother appeared in the doorway anyway, his lanky frame silhouetted against the dim light from his desk lamp. He'd been studying again. He always was. You're late. Like really late. Is everything okay? Tracy dropped her bag and sank onto the threadbare couch that doubled as her bed. Everything's fine. Just picked up some overtime. Danny frowned, pushing his glasses up his nose. Overtime cleaning? At 3 a.m. She hated lying to him. They'd promised each other no secrets after their parents died, after the world had tried to break them both. But Aaron's warning echoed in her mind. Your brother's scholarship disappears. The company had an emergency. Needed deep cleaning after some kind of tech disaster. They paid double. It wasn't entirely a lie. She had cleaned up a disaster. Just not with a mop. Danny studied her for a moment, and Tracy saw too much of their father in that skeptical look. Too smart for his own good, their mother used to say. Both of them were. You look exhausted, he said finally. Want me to make you something? I've got ramen. I'm okay, kiddo. You should sleep. Don't you have that chemistry exam tomorrow? Already studied. I'm ready. He grinned, and for a moment the weight on Tracy's chest lifted. This was why she did it. Why she scrubbed toilets and mopped floors and swallowed her pride every single day. So that grin could stay on his face. So he could have the future she'd lost. You're going to ace it, she said. Just like you ace everything. After Danny went back to bed, Tracy lay on the couch staring at the water-stained ceiling. The apartment was cold, the heat always barely functional, and the sounds of the city filtered through thin walls. This was her life. This tiny box, this constant scramble to make rent, this endless cycle of invisible labor. But maybe not anymore. Aaron's offer hung in her mind like a dangerous promise. Never have to touch another mop again. What did that mean? A desk job? A real salary? Or was she trading one kind of cage for another, more gilded but infinitely more dangerous? She thought about the way Aaron had looked at her. Not like she was invisible. Not like she was just the help. He'd looked at her like she was a tool he could use, yes, but also like she was someone who mattered. Someone with value beyond her ability to make floors shine. Tracy pulled out her phone and stared at the encrypted message she'd received an hour ago. A single line from an unknown number. Tomorrow 9 a.m. top floor. Bring your findings. She should be terrified. She should run. She should grab Danny and disappear into a new city with a new name. But instead she found herself thinking about code. About systems. About the electric thrill of solving a puzzle that had stumped 15 people with degrees and experience she could only dream of. For the first time in 2 years, Tracy fell asleep feeling something other than exhaustion. She felt awake. The top floor of Aaron's headquarters was nothing like the war room. It was sleek, minimalist, and terrifyingly expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the conference table was a single piece of black marble that probably cost more than Tracy had earned in her entire life. 11 men in tailored suits stood around that table, and every single one of them looked at Tracy like she was a stain on their perfect world. Aaron sat at the head of the table, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. "Gentlemen, this is Tracy Bennett. As of today, she's my new chief security officer." The room erupted. Not with cheers. With outrage. "You can't be serious." A man with silver hair and a British accent slammed his hand on the table. "She's a cleaning lady. She fixed what your team couldn't," Aaron said calmly. "In 60 seconds. A fluke. Beginner's luck." This from a younger man with slicked back hair and a sneer that made Tracy's skin crawl. Victor, she remembered from the files she'd read. Head of operations. Aaron's right hand. Or he had been until about 30 seconds ago. "Show them," Aaron said to Tracy. She'd prepared for this. Knew it was coming. Still, walking to the screen with 11 hostile pairs of eyes tracking her every move felt like walking through a minefield. Tracy connected her laptop and brought up her analysis. 3 breaches over the past 6 months, she began, her voice steadier than her hands. Each one disguised as routine maintenance. The person who did this knew exactly when your security audits were scheduled. They had administrative credentials. And they were moving money in small enough amounts that your automated systems didn't flag it. "We already knew all of that," Victor interrupted. "We've been investigating for weeks." "But did you know," Tracy pulled up another screen, "that the access logs were altered? Someone went back and changed the timestamps to make it look like the breaches happened during system updates. Except they made one mistake. The metadata doesn't match. The files were edited 3 days after they were supposedly created." The room went quiet. Even Victor's sneer faltered. "Who?" Aaron's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "I don't know yet," Tracy admitted. "But I know how to find out. Whoever did this is still in your system. They have to be to keep covering their tracks. If you let me set up a honeypot, something that looks valuable enough to steal, I can trace them when they take the bait." One of the older men, someone Tracy didn't recognize, leaned forward. "And if you're wrong? If this honeypot exposes us to even more risk?" "Then I'll take full responsibility," Tracy said, meeting his gaze. "But I'm not wrong." Aaron stood, and the room's attention snapped to him like iron filings to a magnet. "Victor, you'll assist Tracy with whatever she needs. Full access, full cooperation." Victor's jaw tightened. Of course. But the look he gave Tracy as the meeting ended was pure poison. She'd just stolen his position, his proximity to power, and his pride. Men like Victor didn't forgive that. They didn't forget. As the room cleared, Aaron caught her arm. His grip was firm but not painful. "You just made enemies," he said quietly. "Powerful ones. Can you handle that?" Tracy thought about her cramped apartment, her brother's future, the years she'd spent being invisible. "I've handled worse." "Good." Aaron released her. "Because in this world, Tracy, you're either the predator or the prey. There's no middle ground." She watched him walk away and wondered which one she was becoming. The attack came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Tracy was still in the office, having been there for 16 hours straight setting up her honeypot. Victor had been helpful in the way a snake is helpful, giving her exactly what she asked for while radiating contempt. But the trap was ready. A fake database filled with encrypted offshore account numbers, just tempting enough to lure out whoever was bleeding Aaron's empire. Then every screen in the war room turned red. No, no, no. Tracy's fingers flew across her keyboard as alerts screamed from every system. This wasn't her trap being triggered. This was something else entirely. A full-scale digital assault, hitting Aaron's financial infrastructure from 17 different angles at once. Her phone buzzed. "Aaron, of course. Status. We're under attack. Someone's trying to drain every account you have. If they succeed, how long can you hold them?" Tracy watched numbers cascading across her screen, watched firewalls crumbling like paper, watched 2 years of college education slam against a decade of rust and fear. "I don't know if I can." "Yes, you can." Aaron's voice was ice-cold certainty. "You're smarter than they are, Tracy. Prove it." The line went dead. Tracy took 3 seconds to panic. Then her training kicked in. She couldn't stop 17 attacks at once. But she didn't have to. She just needed to find the pattern, the single point of control coordinating them all. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, isolating traffic, tracing routes, following digital breadcrumbs through layers of proxy servers and VPNs. There. A single IP address sending out commands. Amateur hour, hiding behind encryption that looked sophisticated but had a flaw Tracy had learned about in her second semester. She wrote the counter program in 9 minutes, every line of code a prayer she wasn't too late. When she hit execution, the screens flickered. The red faded. The attack stopped. And in their place, a message appeared on every monitor in the building. Nice try. But you'll have to do better than that. Tracy had just traced the attackers, blocked their assault, and sent them a message they couldn't ignore. All in under 15 minutes. She was still shaking when Aaron walked into the war room 3 minutes later, flanked by 2 men with guns. He looked at the screens, at her, then at the IP address she'd isolated. Petrov's crew, he said, recognizing the location data. Bold move, going after the accounts directly. They weren't ready for pushback, Tracy said, her voice hoarse. Next time they'll be better prepared. We need to upgrade the entire security architecture, add redundancies, create. Tracy. Aaron's hand on her shoulder stopped the words spilling out of her. Breathe. She did. Realized she'd been running on pure adrenaline and terror. Her hands were cramping, her vision was blurred, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. You just saved me approximately $50 million, Aaron said. In your first week. So I'll ask you again. Was fixing that code in 60 seconds just luck? Tracy met his gaze and saw something she hadn't expected. Respect. Real, genuine respect. No, she said. It wasn't luck. This is what I'm good at. This is what I was trained to do. Then keep doing it. Aaron turned to leave, then paused. And Tracy? Victor was the one who told me you couldn't handle the job. That you'd fold under pressure. I want you to remember that. After he left, Tracy sat alone in the war room, staring at the screens that had nearly destroyed everything. Victor had set her up to fail. Had maybe even coordinated with Petrov to make sure she failed spectacularly. She thought about Aaron's words from the meeting. Predator or prey? Tracy was done being prey. It was 11 p.m. when Aaron found her still at her desk, surrounded by code and coffee cups. He'd been in meetings all day, cleaning up the fallout from Petrov's failed attack. Tracy had barely seen him except in passing. You should go home, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Almost done. Tracy didn't look up from her screen. Just finishing the new firewall protocols. Should be done in an hour. You said that 3 hours ago. She finally glanced at him and was surprised to see he looked tired. Aaron never looked tired. Even when the world was burning around him, he maintained that granite composure. But now, his tie was loose, his jacket was off, and there were shadows under his eyes. You should take your own advice, she said. Probably. He walked into the room, grabbed a chair and sat down across from her. Tell me something, Tracy. Why cybersecurity? Out of everything you could have studied. The question caught her off guard. They didn't do anything personal. They were professional, transactional, boss and employee. But something about the late hour and the quiet office made the walls feel thinner. My dad was a software engineer, she said slowly. He used to bring me to his office on weekends when I was a kid. I'd sit under his desk with my laptop, trying to hack into his system. He made it a game. Every time I found a vulnerability, he'd patch it and I'd try again. Did you ever succeed? Tracy smiled at the memory. Once. When I was 14. I managed to access his admin account and changed all his desktop icons to pictures of our cat. He was so proud he took me out for ice cream. He sounds like a good man. He was. The past tense still hurts. He and my mom were coming home from my college orientation when a drunk driver crossed the median. They died on impact. Aaron was quiet for a moment. How old were you? 22. Danny was 14. Suddenly I was his legal guardian, and the life insurance barely covered the funeral. So I dropped out, got 3 jobs, and watched my brother become the person I was supposed to be. You resent him for it? No. Tracy's response was immediate and fierce. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Danny deserves every opportunity one can give him. He's brilliant, kind, and everything good about the world. I just sometimes wonder what I could have been if things were different. Aaron leaned back in his chair, studying her with those calculating gray eyes. You want to know something nobody else knows about me? Tracy found herself nodding. I grew up in a neighborhood where the choice was join a gang or become their victim. I was 12 when I made my first protection payment, 14 when I collected my first debt. By 16 I was running my own crew. He paused. I didn't choose this life because I wanted power. I chose it because it was the only way to survive. Do you regret it? Every day. The admission was so quiet Tracy almost missed it. But regret doesn't change the past. It only shapes how you build the future. They sat in silence for a while, two people from different worlds who somehow understood each other's scars. Tracy realized she'd never seen Aaron as human before. He'd been a force, a threat, a dangerous puzzle. But now she saw the exhaustion, the weight of command, the isolation of being the person everyone feared. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Aaron stood, his mask sliding back into place. "But not completely. Not anymore. Because you asked me a question with your eyes and I decided to answer it. Now go home, Tracy. Your brother probably thinks you've forgotten him." After he left, Tracy packed up her things and headed for the elevator. She was stepping inside when she heard footsteps behind her. Victor, emerging from a darkened hallway, his expression unreadable. "Working late?" he asked pleasantly. Too pleasantly. "Just finishing up. I heard about the Petrov situation. Impressive work. Aaron seems quite taken with you." The words were complimentary but the tone made her skin crawl. Tracy stabbed the button for the ground floor. "Just doing my job." "Of course." Victor stepped closer, blocking the elevator door with his body. "Just a word of advice from someone who's been here longer. Aaron has a habit of elevating people quickly. And dropping them even faster. Don't get too comfortable in your new position." The door tried to close and Victor finally stepped back. As the elevator descended, Tracy saw his reflection in the polished metal. He was smiling but it didn't reach his eyes. She pulled out her phone and opened her security logs. Time to start monitoring Victor's digital footprint. Because if Aaron had taught her anything tonight, it was that survival meant staying 3 steps ahead of the people who wanted you gone. The FBI agents arrived on a Wednesday morning, and Tracy knew immediately that something was catastrophically wrong. She was in the war room running system diagnostics when Aaron's head of security, Marcus, appeared in the doorway with 2 men in dark suits. Their badges were already out. "Tracy Bennett?" the taller agent asked. "We have a warrant to search your workstation and seize your devices. You're under investigation for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and unauthorized access to protected computer systems." The room tilted. "What are you talking about?" "We have evidence that you've been leaking sensitive financial information to an outside party. Specifically, details about Aaron Torres's offshore accounts and business operations. You're looking at federal charges that carry up to 20 years. That's insane. I would never." "Save it for your lawyer," the second agent said, already bagging her laptop. "You're not under arrest yet, but we strongly suggest you cooperate." They tore apart her workspace for 2 hours while Tracy sat in a conference room, her mind racing. Someone had set her up. Someone had planted evidence to make it look like she was the traitor she'd been hunting. And there was only one person with both the access and the motive to do it. Victor. Aaron finally appeared in the doorway, his expression carved from ice. "Leave us." The agents protested, but Marcus escorted them out. The door clicked shut, and Tracy was alone with the man who could destroy her with a single word. "Tell me this isn't true," Aaron said. His voice was quiet. "Dangerous." "It's not." "Aaron, I swear on my brother's life I never." "Then explain how the FBI has emails from your account to a known information broker. Explain how they have transaction records showing payments to your personal bank account." Tracy's stomach dropped. Emails. Transactions. Victor hadn't just framed her. He'd done it thoroughly. "I've been set up. Someone cloned my credentials, created fake records." "That's convenient." "Aaron, please." She stood up, desperate. "Think about it. Why would I burn the best opportunity I've ever had? Why would I risk everything when you've given me a chance to actually use my skills? Money. Revenge. A dozen possible reasons. But you know me." The words came out broken. "These past few weeks you've seen how I work. You've seen what I can do. Does this make any sense?" Aaron was quiet for a long moment, and Tracy couldn't read his expression. It was the same mask he wore when people's lives hung in the balance, when he was deciding who lived and who disappeared. "Victor brought me the evidence this morning," he said finally. "Had it all packaged up, ready to present. He was very thorough. Because he's the one who planted it. Aaron, Victor is your leak. He's been covering his tracks for months, and when I got too close, he decided to eliminate me before I could expose him. Can you prove that? Give me time. Let me access my systems, let me trace." "You're suspended, effective immediately." Aaron cut her off. "You're not to access any company systems, not to set foot in this building, not to contact anyone on my team. Until this is resolved, you're a liability. So that's it. Tracy's voice cracked. You're just going to believe Victor over me? I'm going to investigate. Properly. If you're innocent, the truth will come out. If you're not. He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. Tracy grabbed her bag with shaking hands. When you figure out I'm telling the truth, and you realize Victor's been playing you this whole time, I hope you remember this moment. I hope you remember that you threw away the one person who actually solved your problems instead of creating them. She walked out before he could respond, before the tears could fall, before she completely shattered. In the elevator she pulled out her phone. Dead. Wiped remotely. Of course. They'd cut her off from everything. Her access, her tools, her ability to prove her innocence. Victor had backed her into a corner, and Aaron had locked the door. But Victor had made one mistake. He'd assumed Tracy Bennett would roll over and accept defeat. He didn't know that invisible people learn to fight in the shadows. Tracy had 48 hours before the FBI came back with an arrest warrant. Victor had been thorough, but no forgery was perfect. There had to be a digital fingerprint, something that proved the evidence against her was manufactured. She just needed access to the system to find it. At 2 a.m., Tracy slipped back into Aaron's building using the maintenance entrance. Her security badge had been deactivated, but she'd spent enough time with the cleaning crew to know about the manual override in the basement. Old buildings, old locks. Sometimes being invisible had advantages. The war room was dark when she reached it, illuminated only by the glow of sleep mode monitors. Tracy moved to her old workstation and pulled out a bootable USB drive she'd prepared for exactly this kind of emergency. Within minutes, she was in the system, bypassing the access controls with techniques that would have horrified her college professors. The evidence Victor had planted was sophisticated. Fake email chains, doctored transaction logs, even manufactured login timestamps. But as Tracy dug deeper, she found the seams. The metadata didn't quite line up. The email headers had routing information that didn't match the stated timestamps. The transaction records had been edited using software that left tiny artifacts in the file structure. And all of it had been created and modified from Victor's personal workstation. Tracy was documenting everything, building an airtight case when she heard the door lock click. She spun around as Victor stepped into the war room, flanked by two of his security team. His smile was the smile of a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. I had a feeling you'd try something desperate, he said. Breaking into the building, illegally accessing secure systems. You just made this so much easier for me. Let me guess, Tracy said, her mind racing. You're going to call the police, have me arrested for corporate espionage, and I'll be in custody before I can show anyone what I found. See? You're not as stupid as you look. Victor nodded to his men. Secure her. And make sure her little USB drive gets logged as evidence. The security guards moved forward, but Tracy had spent the past 2 weeks learning every inch of this building's infrastructure, including the server room that connected directly to the war room through a maintenance corridor. She grabbed her laptop and bolted. The corridor was narrow, dark, and filled with cable runs and ventilation ducts. Tracy knew she had maybe 30 seconds before Victor's men cut her off. She reached the server room and slammed the door, engaging the emergency lock. It would only buy her minutes, maybe less. The room was a maze of racks and cooling systems, the heart of Aaron's digital empire. Tracy found a terminal and plugged in her laptop. If she couldn't get out, she'd make sure the evidence got out instead. She heard Victor's voice through the door. You're trapped, Tracy. There's no other exit. Just open the door and this can end quickly. You're right, Tracy called back, her fingers flying across the keyboard. There is no other exit. Which means I've got nothing to lose. She uploaded everything she'd found to a secure cloud server, then sent copies to 3 different email addresses. One to Aaron, one to Marcus, and one to her brother with instructions to release it to the press if anything happened to her. What are you doing in there? Victor's voice had an edge of panic now. Insurance, Tracy said. Then she triggered the building's fire suppression system. Alarms screamed. Halon gas flooded the corridors. And in the chaos that followed, Tracy heard Victor's men retreating, and heard Victor himself cursing as the entire floor went into emergency evacuation mode. She gave it 3 minutes, then cracked the server room door. The corridor was empty, filled with white vapor and flashing lights. Tracy moved quickly through the building, ditching her laptop in a trash can on the 2nd floor. She'd gotten the evidence out. That was all that mattered. She was almost to the emergency stairs when she ran directly into Aaron. He grabbed her arm and Tracy's first instinct was to fight. But his grip was firm, not painful, and his eyes were scanning her for injuries. "Did he hurt you?" Aaron demanded. "What? No, I got your email 3 minutes ago." Aaron pulled out his phone, showing her the evidence she'd sent. "I'm looking at Victor's digital footprint right now. Everything you said was true." Tracy's knees nearly buckled with relief. "He tried to trap me in the server room. He was going to delete everything I found and have me arrested." Aaron's expression went from concern to fury in the space of a heartbeat. He made a phone call, said 2 words, "Find Victor." Then he looked at Tracy, really looked at her, and she saw something she'd never expected to see in those gray eyes. Regret. "I should have trusted you," he said quietly. "You've proven yourself a dozen times over, and I let Victor's lies convince me you were a threat. That won't happen again." "Where is he now?" Aaron's smile was cold and predatory. "Running. But not for long. Nobody betrays me and walks away, Tracy. Nobody." Victor fled to a dockside warehouse, liquidating assets to escape, but Aaron's team surrounded the building before dawn. Despite Aaron's warnings, Tracy insisted on joining the confrontation. "He framed me," she stated firmly. "I'm coming." Inside the maze of shipping containers, Victor tried to negotiate, offering information on rivals to save his life. Aaron was unmoved. "You betrayed me and framed an innocent woman," he replied coldly. "You're worth nothing." Gunfire erupted and Tracy dove for cover. Noticing Victor's laptop was remotely wiping incriminating files, she shouted, "He's destroying evidence." While Aaron moved with lethal precision to neutralize Victor, Tracy rushed to the terminal. With seconds to spare, she stopped the wipe, preserving every illicit transaction and contact. "You saved everything," Aaron noted with genuine admiration. "I'll fix things," Tracy replied. 3 years later, the underworld was a memory. Tracy stood as CEO of A&T Security, a premier legitimate firm, with Aaron by her side. Her brother was thriving at MIT, and their penthouse had replaced her cramped apartment. From an invisible maid to a tech visionary, Tracy had fixed 2 broken lives, proving that the predator and his genius were truly unstoppable.